Good morning. I'm going to continue the last chapter of the Yoga of Relationships. It's a chapter on the contract between two lovers. And we have arrived at, um, let me see, values to be enshrined and cultivated. And we spoke about goodwill, reason, accommodation, tolerance and service, equality, love confers no rights, responsibility, forgiveness, and gratitude. And the next one is freedom. Freedom should be your number one value. If it isn't, you will be enslaved by what you don't know or by your significant other, who you do know. So the first issue on the agenda is a commitment to say no to your lover's insistent guilt-inducing demands. Power is a constant issue in every relationship because most of us think that undying professions of love are statements of your willingness to do what I want you to do. Security. Money is code for security. You can't enjoy unless you are secure. Whether you understand the reasons for your partner's financial insecurities or not, you need to be very clear upfront about the value of balanced books. Long before you tie the knot, you should know whether your potential love object is a debt-fueled spendthrift, a parsimonious miser, or something in between. You should not sacrifice your financial cushion, your job, or an inheritance, for instance, until the relationship is on solid footing. Don't think that the universe is going to shower you with money because you love each other. It operates on strict monetarist principles. Love loves frivolous luxuries. Extravagant weddings can set you back years financially. When the honeymoon is over, you want to return to a sensible, reasonable life so your love can grow. Ban negative values. Every positive value implies a negative value. Ban the negative values. A few obvious examples are anger, projection, control, insensitivity, withholding, injustice, unfairness, lack of discrimination, judgmentalism, self-righteousness, aggression, superiority, selfishness, hypocrisy, dishonesty, self-indulgence, lack of respect for self or other, infidelity in thought, word, and deed, inequality, squandering money and debt, greed, envy and power over the other, jealousy or possessiveness, among many others. Sex. Just as you need to know where you stand on money, you need to know whether your partner is a libidinous sport fucking Lothario, a repressed guilty, incompetent, or something in between. Just as fidelity to the contract provides a safe haven for love, sexual fidelity provides an environment in which intimate sexuality can flower. No matter how liberal you think you are, open relationships are vulgar expressions of sexual greed that build distrust. The frequency and type of sexual behavior needs to be nailed down before you commit. Offspring. Clarity with reference to children is absolutely necessary at the beginning of a relationship, particularly for women. Men are often prone to profess true love, but become lukewarm on the topic of children once the woman is sexually hooked. If children are your primary reason for a relationship, you need to state it unequivocally in contract negotiations, keeping in mind that all contracts are time sensitive and your partner's interest in children may blossom once the bloom is off the sexual rose. Until then, safe sex is necessary. If you fall in love and one or both of you have children, or even when you have your own children, Lack of clarity about the nature of parenting creates great stress and damages children, sometimes irrevocably. If you don't negotiate the details carefully, the courts will. Status, spiritual, racial, and cultural differences. Sad to say, love is not a friend of duality and has difficulty flowering in uncertainty. Consequently, you need to be very clear about your prospective mate's identification with his or her race, culture, religion, and social status. If you grew up in a desire oriented, individualistic culture and fall in love with someone from a duty oriented family culture, like India, for instance, you will be treated to tremendous problems, not the least of which involves in laws camping in your guest room for long periods of time. Daily duties, practical needs: who cooks, takes out the garbage, shuttles the kids to school, pays the bills, cleans the house, and and when need to be negotiated, as they can cause endless chafing. Recreational values, sports, hobbies, travel, entertainment, etc., require clarity, as do food preferences. The devil is in the details. Periodic revision. The relationship contract is a covenant. In essence, it takes the form of a spiritual, even if the parties involved do not consider themselves to be spiritual or religious. All the same, life changes and people's needs change. People's needs change. The contract is not set in stone. It must be revised regularly. The revision can take the form of a devotional ritual at agreed upon intervals. Respect the contract and make it a living entity. The moral high ground. Sometimes even clear rules can't save an inherently bad match. There are always things we don't know about ourselves, others, and situations in which our relationship is embedded. If, however, you have faithfully adhered to the covenant and the relationship goes south, your self esteem will not suffer because you can claim the moral high ground, which should be infinitely more important than living with someone who is unable to enshrine reason above the emotions that compel violations of Dharma. The skills to develop. Number one, Karma Yoga, the spirit of relationships. Karma Yoga bears repeating because it is a skill which, practiced diligently, guarantees happy relationships. Worldly or spiritual, your relationship is a stand in for God and the field to which you surrender your respective egos. Consecrate every thought, word, and deed before speaking or acting to the relationship. Take your relationship as a great gift. Reciprocate. Give back by renouncing neurotic, gratuitous needs and graciously accept the results that come from every interaction with your beloved. If you hold on to disappointment and frustration, you're not honoring the relationship. If your life serves the contract, it will serve you. The serenity prayer is in the Karma Yoga spirit. Ask God to give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Before you speak and act, make sure you're speaking from the heart and consider the relationship consequences. Apply Karma Yoga to issues large and small. Ask your partner to pack the dishwasher, clean their shoes before entering the home, keep their cup on a saucer, and sweep the floor, but gently remind him of the contract and give him time to comply when he drags his feet. Glad acceptance even works when I'm denied important things. Perhaps I want my partner to quit his job or her job, to spend more time with me or to be more outwardly affectionate. If your partner doesn't consistently make an effort to appreciate your needs, cancel or renegotiate the contract at the right time. Number 2, second skill. Without language, we are only animals. Language is like a mirror that reflects our innate intelligence or lack thereof. We're all enlightened until we open our mouths. The way we use language is intimately linked to our private inner worlds. Because most of us are oblivious to the power of words and the value of silence, we waste a lot of energy talking for the sake of talking. Because we don't know who we are, we don't know how to communicate with clarity and confidence. We often resort to aggressive, violent speech or communicate in platitudes and slogans, often repeating the same idea over and over every few minutes. We can overcome most problems if we know how to use words wisely. My mother used to say that you can never be sorry for something you never said, which is partially true. Yeah. Mindfulness, a sophisticated process that requires ruthless objectivity, is monitoring our thoughts as they arise, with the intention of understanding and relating to the world truthfully. Silence is golden, but we can also miss the opportunity to say the right thing at the right time. The tenor and tone of your voice significantly impacts your ability to communicate effectively. On top of that, words have an ostensible as well as an implied meaning, which is not always clear. The implied meaning can be in the words themselves or how and when you speak them. Finally, everything we hear and say is filtered through our understanding or lack thereof. People often use empty words to create the illusion of intimacy. So bring awareness to what you say, why, and when you say it. See how busy and extroverted your mind is. Practice keeping silent. It's not a crime to have nothing to say. If silence makes people uncomfortable, it's their problem, not yours. Communication is sharing our identity as awareness. If the I were unique, there would be no way to communicate with everyone, with anyone. We always speak as the self, to the self, in another body, whether we are aware of it or not. And because there are so many factors involved in communicating with an apparent other, it is often fraught with misunderstanding. It helps to understand why. The communication mechanism, a reminder. 1. The base level is my conscious mind talking to your conscious mind. This level is problematic because we listen and speak through our own conditioned filters. We may hear words, but we don't hear each other. One of your sentences causes a reaction and I'm itching to reply, so I don't hear the remainder of your communication. Misunderstandings follow. What we hear depends on the nature of the guna impacting the mind when we communicate. If either mind is dull, toxic, or disturbed, rajasic, miscommunication is possible. If both are dull, miscommunication is guaranteed. If both are passionate and excited, ditto. If both are peaceful and clear, sattvic, communication is guaranteed, factors being equal, which they usually aren't. Number 2 of the communication mechanism. The second layer is a two-way internal dialogue between my conscious mind and my subconscious mind, multiplied by 2. Again, my ability to understand the intimations coming from my subconscious is impacted by the gunas operating in both our conscious minds. To add another layer of complexity, number 3, our subconscious minds are communicating with each other which means that we are projecting and denying without even knowing it, no matter how clear we think we are. And 4, if all this is not complicated enough, my conscious mind is talking to your subconscious mind and vice versa, sometimes called the sixth sense or intuition. If you want trouble, convey information your conscious mind received from your significant other's mind. He or she can't help but deny it, because it is unknown to them. A helpful suggestion. The talking stick. The Native Americans have or had a custom called the talking stick. It has 2 branches, like a wishbone. For me, the branches represent duality, and the central stick represents non-duality. Sharing the same stick indicates a willingness to listen as well as speak. Whoever holds the stick gets to talk while the other listens. Keep this image in mind when you communicate. Make sure you understand how your significant other understands the issue. Repeat their words and ask if you have received the message. Avoid categorical confrontational statements such as "you always" and "you never." They are not true, although it feels they are in the heat of the argument. You don't want people to think you're right. Your sole motivation is to win, and you're convinced that the other person is wrong even before you've heard their arguments. You will only generate emotional heat, not light. People walk away from healthy discussions satisfied. Contentiousness only breeds anger and bitterness, not friendship. Approach with humility, mutual respect, intellectual honesty, and a willingness to be wrong. Speak calmly, and unemotionally, and give the other person the opportunity to speak without interruption. Don't distract yourself by planning a counter-argument while the other person is speaking. If you're unsure of your point of view, be willing to discuss the topic later. Don't express half-baked ideas. And humor is an excellent communication skill. In conclusion, in a nutshell, the main contention of this book boils down to one simple fact. If we don't appreciate ourselves as the love we seek, we will seek it in another. The irony is that which we seek in another, we always have in the form of ourself. Nobody can give this to you, nobody can take it away. Seeking permanent satisfaction where it cannot be found generates expectations which invariably lead to disappointment and suffering. The main obstacle to our appreciation of this fact is our attachment to our story and identification with who we think we are as a person, responding to life purely through our ever-changing thoughts and emotions. As a good relationship with anyone starts and ends with you, its success depending on your level of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. There's no magic formula for a happy life or relationship, no utopia where we all live happily ever after. We don't promise that, but this book provides the unexamined logic behind why relationships are so difficult and the tools to work with, which, if applied correctly, do work for everyone. Because because they are in harmony with the logic of existence. It is up to you to make sure your life is congruent with this logic and not try to make it work the other way around, because that will never provide lasting happiness. When our lives are subjugated to the logic of existence, life flows as it must, and although this is no immunity against loss and pain, we see ourselves to be much more than the sum of our gains and losses in this world. That we are perfect as we are, whole and complete, satisfied, no matter who is or is not, in our lives. So this is the end. This book, The Yoga of Relationships by Isabella Viglietti. I hope you enjoyed. I wish you a great day. Thank you. Bye for now.